Good evening, all my fellow BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another edition of the Six Sided Scholars, your TNA PLE review squad here at the BC WrestlePod. It's just me this evening. Will and JT unfortunately could not be here tonight due to other life obligations. They wish they could be here, but hey, I'm going to get us through three things today. And I'm super excited though, because I'm looking forward to the Sunday with TNA Rebellion just around the corner. So we're going to talk about Unbreakable that happened over WrestleMania weekend. I'm going to touch briefly upon the TNA show from yesterday, April 24th. And then I'm going to give my predictions for TNA Rebellion, which again is happening this Sunday, April 27th. I am Mikey. I am the ringmaster, Grand Poobah, whatever you want to call him here at BC WrestlePod. I try to keep my team of 10 under control and not as chaotic as people like to think we are, but who am I kidding? Oh man, I'm super excited to be here this evening. I've had such a fun time with TNA over the last week or so, and I cannot wait to get into all the stuff that happened. But before we get into that, if you like what you see on the screen here, or even if you don't, that's okay. We love you for either way. And you want to see a little bit more of what we do beyond the YouTube and the Twitch, well, you should probably go check out our social medias at BC WrestlePod, where we have clips from all of our shows, as well as report cards for the weeklies and the pay-per-views. And we just have a good time overall. So we are at the final review for WrestleMania 41 Hell Week, and that concludes tonight with TNA's Unbreakable. So I'm super excited. So let's just get started. So I know that I am about a week late talking about TNA Unbreakable, but we've covered a lot of other things happening. We had 2 nights of Mania, we had NXT Stand and Deliver, we had some Stardom shows, we had, GCW shows, we had a Progress Wrestling show. It's been a lot. But I'm finally happy to be able to talk about Unbreakable. So initially, when Unbreakable was being publicized, I thought this was going to be like a standard pay-per-view event. I will be honest, I feel like Unbreakable was more like a special TV episode of TNA that just happened to be live, but still, it was a lot of fun. And we did crown a new TNA International Champion, which we'll get into in a little bit. So we're gonna go through TNA Unbreakable first, and then we're gonna get into everything else that we have for this evening. So TNA Unbreakable started with our first quarterfinal or semifinal triple threat match to make it into the finals at the very end of the evening for the TNA inaugural TNA International Championship, where we saw Zachary Wentz, JDC, and Eric Young. I thought this was a smart way to open up the show. All three men bring something different. Zachary Wentz, of course, being one half of the Rascals, is known for his high energy and chaos. JDC also wrestles that kind of exotico style that we're used to, like in CMLF. Ooh, excuse me, it's late down here. And then Eric Young is your consummate professional, so he's the veteran, so he already knows. I thought all three men did a really good job. Eric Young does walk out of this match as the winner, and he will be moving on to the main event later in the Unbreakable to try to become the international champion. From here, we get our second qualifying match, which is Eddie Edwards, Ace Austin, and Steve Macklin. Between the two qualifying matches that we got in this episode, this definitely was my favorite of the two. I think Macklin, Ace, and Eddie Edwards, I think all three of them did great. Ace continues to be a fun favorite of mine, just bringing that unique sense of offense in, while Steve is your hard-hitting, no-nonsense wrestler, and Eddie, again, being the veteran here. However, due to some miscommunication from Alicia Edwards' part, Steve Macklin is able to capitalize, pin Eddie Edwards, and punch his ticket into the final of the International Championship tournament. This is a great match overall. I really enjoyed it. So next, we ended up having an open challenge for Moose's X Division Championship. And who should answer the call but a still trying to figure out if he's going to be signing with TNA or just a guest spot. But we have Sidney Akeem. So GCW's on Sidney Akeem opens the or answers the call. And I'm excited. I've become such a huge fan of Sydney since he left NXT, and he's been on our GCW screens for quite some time now. And now to have him in TNA makes me super excited. Sydney had the offensive, but again, the system works in numbers, and the numbers are just too much for Sydney to handle. So unfortunately, Sydney does not get the X Division Championship. But when we get to the episode, I'll talk about it in a little bit because Sydney was like, nah, bro, it ain't going down like this. So while Moose walked out as the champion, this is not the last we would see of Sydney Akeem this week. And this is not the last we're going to see him either because he will be at Rebellion. More on that in a little bit. Next, we get into a six-man tag team match that sees Mike Santana and the Hardys teaming up together to take on Mustafa Ali and Nick and Ryan Nemeth. So essentially, these are opponents that are going to be going up against each other at Rebellion with Mike versus Ali and then the Hardys versus the Nemeth. This match was a lot of fun. Ryan Nemeth was there to take the pin. Ali at one point left the middle of the match. He ran away. He left Ryan and Nick by themselves, which would allow Mike and the Hardys to capitalize the 3-on-2 numbers advantage and ultimately win this six-man tag team match. Again, Ali running away during this sets the tone for what Mike would talk about during the episode that aired last night, which I'll talk about when we get to the TNA TV episode in a little bit. But I thought this was a really fun match. Again, Unbreakable felt more like a special TV show than an actual pay-per-view, but I still loved it. It was a lot of fun, and it definitely sets a lot of things up for Rebellion come this Sunday. So let's get into our other tag team match. So this one saw the champions versus the challengers, essentially. We had Joe Hendry and Masha Slemovich, your respective TNA World Champion and your TNA Knockouts Champion, taking on their number one contenders come Rebellion this Sunday in Frankie Kazarian, the Call Your Shot Gauntlet winner, and Tessa Blanchard. I'm going to be 100% honest here. I thought the bad guys were going to win this one, but again, miscommunication was the running theme for Unbreakable because Frankie miscommunicated and he accidentally hit Tessa Blanchard with the lariat, which would allow Masha and Joe to capitalize and pick up the victory. Now, normally my wrestling brain tells me that if with Joe and Masha winning, I'm so scared that they're going to lose this Sunday in Los Angeles at Rebellion. But I'll talk about that when we get into predictions because I still feel it's too soon for either one of these two to lose their championship. But this was a fun match. Again, that's the name of the game for Unbreakable. This was a fun match. And Joe and Masha walk out of Las Vegas as your winners. This was a really lovely moment. While they were setting up the ring for what was to become our barbed wire massacre match, Ace Austin introduces Chris Bay, a Las Vegas native. Chris gives an update on his, injury and how he's doing and all of that, and that he vows to return to the ring stronger than ever. This was a very sweet moment. We've been missing Chris Bay from in-ring action since October of last year. So it's really nice to see him walk on his own, be able to speak. Chris Bay, we here at BC Wrestle Pod love you, and we're sending you our love and our prayers and our thoughts, and speedy recovery for you, my friend. We love you. I'm gonna be honest, this was probably my favorite match of the whole entire Unbreakable show, but that's because I have a propensity for violence. So in a barbed wire massacre match, we have Sami Callihan versus Mance Warner. These two have been going up against each other for quite some time now, and this is the end of their feud. This had everything: barbed wires, bats, doors, chairs. At one point, Sami Callihan stapled Mance Warner's tongue to the door. It was wild. I also did appreciate Sami Callihan coming out dressed like Mankind, which is a really nice nod. And the Death Machine, Sami Callihan, walked out of Las Vegas, the winner of this barbed wire massacre match. Now, I don't know if that means that Mance is done with TNA, but this has been a really fun feud for Sami, and I look forward to what happens with him next. So now, let's get into our main event. This is to crown our inaugural TNA International Champion. And so in this match, we had AJ Francis, who won his match 2 weeks ago on TNA television and basically got a bye to the finals, taking on the winners of the other two triple threats earlier in the show of Eric Young, Steve Macklin. This was my second favorite match of the whole entire night for Unbreakable. Steve Macklin pins AJ Francis to become your TNA inaugural champion. And on top of that, too, commentary made sure to let us know that the person who does not get pinned in this match would go on to face Macklin for the title in Rebellion. So that would be Eric Young. Again, this match was typical between these three. Eric Young being the veteran, AJ being the power, and Steve Macklin being your brawler type, which, somehow they made it all work very well. But we ended TNA Unbreakable with Steve Macklin holding up that international championship high. And overall, again, I said Unbreakable was really fantastic. I had such a great time with it. Again, it felt less like a PLE and more like a special live edition of TNA's weekly show, but I still had a good time. Speaking of weekly TV shows, I want to briefly touch upon the April 24th episode of TNA that happened last night at the time of this recording, because ultimately it was the go home show and it set up everything that we need for Rebellion happening this weekend. So we kicked things off with a tag team match, Moose and JDC taking on Trey Miguel and Ace Austin. So the Rascals beat Trey Miguel is without Zachary Wentz because Zach got beat up by the system backstage at Unbreakable, which kind of took him out for the week. And so Ace Austin, who also has his own issues with the system, has teamed up with Trey to try to take them down. Again, the system has been running roughshod in TNA for the last couple of weeks due to the numbers advantage. And unfortunately, the numbers game was too much for Trey and Ace because they would end up falling, which would allow the system to pick up the victory here. We're going to talk about these boys in a little bit because they're tired of the numbers game. So they're making a phone call to even the odds at Rebellion. As far as the match goes, I thought this was a fun opener. Again, I think all four of these individuals are great, but you could definitely tell that Trey and Ace Austin have better tag team chemistry, but I think that's because their styles of wrestling are very similar to one another. And that's not to discredit Moose and JDC because they also work good as a team as well, but it's the typical Moose is your power and JDC is your standard wrestler. But I thought this was a smart way to open up the show, and this is a lot of fun. We get a vignette with Masha Slamovich, who has been losing to Tessa Blanchard every turn. And then in a digital exclusives, which I'm still very upset about, we see that Tessa attacked Masha's trainer in New York, which has caused Masha to question herself as to whether or not she's going to be able to pull out the win. Tommy Dreamer comes in to remind Masha that she has earned every right and she is the toughest fighter in this roster and that she needs to make sure that Tessa remembers that you don't mess with her. So I am hoping, because of what we see a little bit later, that Masha is going to just take out Tessa at Rebellion and retain her Knockouts championship. So good on Tommy Dreamer here, man. Mike Santana, if you do not walk out of Rebellion as the winner, I think I might riot. But we get a pre-tape vignette of Mike Santana at his AA meeting talking about Ali, verbally roasting him, and basically calling Ali an addict because he has to control everybody and everything around him. But come Rebellion, Mike Santana is going to be fighting for him, fighting for the underdogs, fighting for those who are second chances. I swear to God, TNA, if you don't let Mike win this on Sunday, we're going to have problems, and I'm going to have some questions for you. But Mike, I love you, man. I'm really hoping he pulls out a win at Rebellion. This part was funny. So Heather is still freaking out because she has somehow managed to get a fatal four-way match for those TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships. And so her, Maggie Lee, and George Iceman, the concierge, all three of them FaceTime with Ash, who's currently on vacation. And so Ash is not happy that they're going to have to defend these titles against three other teams because that only leaves a 25% chance of walking out as champion. But when they hang up, Heather said they're going to make the best of what's to come. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to talk about it during my predictions. I think they're fine, but it is true. They have a 25% chance of winning and walking out of Rebellion as your Knockouts Tag Team Champion. Ooh, excuse me. Essentially, this was a fine match. JC's pretty good. Rosemary's pretty good. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. Ultimately, this match served for the purpose. JC would end up picking the victory over Rosemary, but that's because it would set up what we got next. Because Fatal Influence attacks Rosemary after the match, which then prompts Zaya Brookside and Liang Li to come in for the save. As Fatal Influence is walking up the ramp, the best authority figure of all wrestling right now, Santino Marella, comes out and basically says that we're not going to be doing this. So at Rebellion on the countdown, it's going to be the team of Zaya Brookside, Liang Li, and Rosemary taking on Fatal Influence. I think this is going to be a fun one. I love seeing Zaya and Liang Li on the card, even if it's on the pre-show more, because these two are going to be staples in the remaining of the year for TNA. And it's nice to see Rosemary. And I think this is going to be a fun showing for the Fatal Influence girls as well, representing NXT. I loved it. I can't wait. This was the best segment. I don't care what no one says. This was so camp, so ridiculous. I enjoyed it. So the Nemeth brothers visit the Hardy compound, and this was wild. We had Jeff Hardy's alter ego, or one of his alter characters, Willow, dancing to an instrumental version of Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, which was wild. We had table spots. Ryan Nemeth had a full-on therapy session turned into an emo. This was wild. And ultimately, the Nemeths do leave the Hardy compound with the tag team championships. But Brother Nero, Jeff Hardy's alter ego in the universe that is the Hardy compound, chases them off. So I think we're getting the Broken Hardys at Rebellion, which is going to be nuts. But this was so camp. I love this. Wrestling needs more ridiculousness like this. I had a great time with this. Oh, so good. This is a reminder to myself and to everybody who watches TNA that next Thursday's episode is going to be live from Irvine at a special start time of 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, and 7 p.m. Pacific. So it's going to be a late show. So this is going to be crazy, but I'm excited. And I'm glad that TNA reminds us of these things. So that way I'm not wondering at 5 p.m. Pacific why my show is not on. Ace, Trey, and Zach have had it with the system in their numbers. So they decide to even the odds. They're going to call one person with them, which leads into the announcement that at Rebellion, the Rascals and Ace Austin will be taking on the system. And the Rascals and Ace Austin have Sean Waltman, a.k.a. X-Pac, in their corner. I don't care what nobody says. X-Pac's great. This is going to be a fun match. This is going to be fun. I'm hoping the Rascals and Ace are finally able to win against the system, because they be cheating the whole time, man. I can't wait. Tess is in action against Missy Blake, who is an enhancement talent, local girl. Tessa wins, but the important thing is Masha comes out, but breaks her arm and everything, and so this is going to be interesting. So Tessa looks legitimately scared at the end of the segment, so I'm hoping that Masha is able to win on Sunday. Y'all, we witnessed a poisoning in this part. Eric Young and Steve Macklin have some final words talking about their match for the International Championship at Rebellion. Steve Macklin leaves, but then he falls over because Eric Young had poisoned his drink, and he took Steve Macklin's notebook and burnt it in the fire. It's about to get personal. It's about to get crazy. I can't wait. We get a recap of Joe Hendry's match against Randy Orton at WrestleMania, as well as his appearance on NXT by doing a promo segment with Trick Williams and Oba Femi. So I am going to assume that Joe's probably going to be working with NXT over the summer a little bit more. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for him, which leads us into our main event, which is a tag team match: Joe Hendry and Elijah versus All Ego Ethan Page of NXT and Frankie Kazarian. They were playing up Joe's rotator cuff being injured the whole match. Elijah and Joe end up winning this match after Ethan refuses to tag in for Frankie. Joe and Elijah stand tall, but at what cost? Because Joe was, holding on to that shoulder for dear life at the end. But that brings us to the end of the TNA episode, which I thought was a really fun go-home show. But now, let's get into why we're all really here, which is for the predictions for Rebellion. So if you're going to be in the Los Angeles area this Sunday at the Gallon Center, I will be there live watching this pay-per-view. I will be wearing my BC WrestlePod hockey jersey. So if you find yourself out in Los Angeles this Sunday, come say hi. It's going to be a good time. But without further ado, let's get into our predictions, or my predictions, for TNA Rebellion. So we're going to kick things off with the two matches that are starting on the pre-show. So we have the 6-women tag team match with the teams of Zaya Brookside, Liang Lee, and Rosemary taking on Fatal Influence. I'm going to go with the TNA girls. I feel that Zaya and Lee and Rosemary are due for a win after getting beat up by the Fatal Influence girls for over the last couple of weeks. And I don't think Fatal Influence win would amount to much here in TNA. So I'm going to go with our girls. Now, for the other match that is on the Countdown show, we have the Walk with Elijah Open Challenge, where anybody from any promotion anywhere in the world is going to come up and challenge Elijah to a match. Now, granted, I usually err on the side of our mystery opponents, but because Elijah has been kind of on and off winning, I'm going to go with Elijah to win here. But again, it depends on who his talent of his opponent is, which I'm hoping is one of those rumored international stars that TNA has said to have signed. But then we get into the main card now. So first, we're going to talk about the 6-man tag team match: the Rascals and Ace Austin versus the System. The System have been getting a lot over on these three, so I'm going to pick Ace Austin and the Rascals to walk out as winners, because I feel that they've been on the losing end for the majority of this feud over the last couple of weeks in TNA. So now I think it is due time for them to have a win. In what is touted to be the final encounter for now between these two in a Falls Count Anywhere match, we have Mike Santana versus Ali. I have to go with Mike Santana. I think if this is the last period point of this current chapter of their feud, I'm going with Mike Santana to win. Ali can't run away or anything can't happen, so Mike is going to win for me. Now, let's get into our championship matches. First, we're going to talk about the Fatal 4-Way for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. Our champions, Ash and Heather by Elegance, will be defending their titles against NXT's Metaphor. So that's Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend, Spitfire, and NXT's Chi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. As much as I would love the Meta Girls to win, I'm going to go with Ash and Heather. We just got these titles at Sacrifice. I don't think they're going to be losing them anytime soon. So while Spitfire is not going to get pinned, they are not going to walk out of Los Angeles as champions. So I'm going to go with Ash and Heather by Elegance to retain here. Next, we have the TNA World Tag Team Championships next, where we have the Hardys of Jeff and Matt defending the titles against the Nemeth brothers of Nick and Ryan. So as I previously mentioned, Ryan and Nick Nemeth walked out of the Hardy compound with those tag titles. So I'm thinking we are going to get the broken Matt Hardy and broken Jeff Hardy characters to come back, which in the realm of universe are the more serious of the Hardys. So I think the Hardys are going to win in these using their broken character gimmicks, and then ultimately take the titles back from Ryan and Nick. So it should be a fun match. For the TNA International Championship, we have our newly crowned champion, Steve Macklin, taking on Eric Young. Oh, excuse me. So from here, I'm going to go with Steve Macklin to win here. because he just won the championship. I don't think we're going to give it to Eric Young soon, but I also don't think this is going to be the only time that these two feud. So I'm going to go with Steve Macklin to retain here, which brings me into our next match, which is the Ultimate X making its reappearance at Rebellion. So for those of you who do not know, the Ultimate X match is a structure that has 4 steel pillars on the ring post, making a red X in the middle with the championships hung above. And in order to win it, you have to shimmy across the ropes in the middle of the ring, high above the, ring itself, grab the X Division Championship, and land with it on the ground in order to become champion. So in this match, we have Moose, Leon Slater, Matt Cardona, El Hijo del Vikingo, Casey Navarro, and Sidney Akeem. So I'm excited. Ultimately, I really honestly think it's going to come down between Moose and Leon Slater. And because I got to go with my heart here, I'm going to go with Leon Slater to win. I think it's time for Leon to walk away with this championship. Moose has had it for quite some time now. So I think Leon Slater is due for a championship for all the work he's been putting in. So I'm going to go with Leon Slater to walk out as Rebellion as our new X Division champion. In the semi-main event, we have Masha Slamovich defending her TNA Knockouts World Championship against Tessa Blanchard. This one's easy for me. I'm going with Masha because out of spite for Tessa, I cannot in good conscience pick her to win. And since Masha has been on the losing end for the majority of this feud, I'm really hoping TNA will let her get this win here at Rebellion. And down the line, Tessa can take it. But I want Masha to finally get one up against Tessa after being beat by her so much recently. So Masha is going to be my pick here, which leads us into the main event. A triple threat for the TNA World Championship. We have Joe Hendry defending his title against Frankie Kazarian and NXT's All Ego Ethan Page. Because we've been playing up Joe Hendry's rotator cuff as the injury spot, I think he's going to totally underdog it and walk out as the winner. My biggest fear is that Joe wins and then Frankie cashes in his stupid Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy to steal the win here, even after the match is over. But I believe in Joe Hendry, and so I'm going to pick him as my, choice here. And that brings us to the end of our Rebellion predictions. And overall, that brings us to the end of our TNA review this week. Again, I apologize that it was just me this evening, but I had a good time with Unbreakable and the TNA show and Rebellion. So this is going to be such a fun show this Sunday. So if you want to watch Rebellion, you could watch it via TNA Plus or Triller TV. And again, if you're going to be at the pay-per-view this Sunday, I will be there wearing my Bi-Conics hockey jersey. So come say hi, take pictures. I would love to meet with some of you guys in person. Well, that's going to be it for me tonight, this evening. Thank you for tuning in to Six-Sided Scholars. We are officially done with WrestleMania Hell Week. This was the last review of the schedule this week. We're going to be taking a break this weekend, so nothing tomorrow and no WWE review on Sunday. But tune in Monday as Adolfo and I will be reviewing Stardom's Neon Dream and Neon City and Sin City pay-per-views, as well as going back to our regular scheduled programming. I have been Mikey El Efe, and from all of us here at BC WrestlePod, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you on Monday for another fun week of reviews, but until then, sayonara, adios, and take care of yourselves tonight. We'll see you then.